How you doing? I'm Frank Gucciardo with orderplans.com, a division of PKAD Architecture and Design. Welcome back to Talking Shop in the Shop. And we're here again in West Sayville. Our hosts at Cool Beans Coffee Shop here has been gracious enough again to allow us to come in. Great spot. I'd encourage anyone, if you're in the area, to stop in for a cup of coffee or some tasty treats here at the counter. Good family, nice local family-run organization. So today in the shop, we have Mike Macnamara, who is a real estate attorney, and we have Ruth Hungerford of Greenway Designs. Mike specializes in the real estate space, and Ruth is an expediter with across experience and professional work as a realtor as well, right? So welcome.
Thank
Glad
you.
to have you in the shop today. So. What I wanted to talk about today, and I know the real estate market's changing a little bit, in that they're no longer the days of buyers lining up 57 people deep to look at a house, right? Is
not at all.
that what you're seeing? Things are changing?
Very accurate, yes.
So again, from to speak to both the realtor and the expediter side of things. Folks need to be a little aware on the seller side of how to prepare. So they have this, they want to move, they want to sell. We have buyers that now they have, they're not so much being, they're a little more in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to talk about today was maybe some barriers to closing.
Sure.
So everything looks good at the looks great. They're shaking hands. They're excited. They go to contract, but it still has to get past the closing table.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. So Mike, why don't we maybe just chew down a little bit on maybe some of the barriers to closing, or what should a buyer be? What should a seller be looking to do in preparation?
Well, there's really two barriers, I would say, to getting to the closing table. That's the financing side, and then there's the title side. And being that I'm sitting next to the expediter, I'd talk about the title side first. When you are going into the contract, one of the things that an attorney will make sure of is that the property that their client is buying is legal. So the seller really needs to know that their property is legal. Anyone can negotiate that term to say that they'd be willing to take a property, let's say if you put up a gazebo in your backyard. The buyer can say, I'll take that gazebo even though I didn't get a permit for it.
Right. So when you say legal, how do you mean legal? Like what defines legal? In case we have maybe a homeowner watching or something like that. Right?
Very good point.
Yeah. So what's legal mean?
It means that you got permission from the town or the village to erect that structure at the house. So if you wanted that gazebo, that you would have gone and gotten permission to first build,
right,
have the inspection done that it was built correctly, and then to close it down and have what's called a certificate of occupancy for it.
Right.
Okay?
So that certificate of occupancy then would be the town's designation that you may legally occupy this space.
Correct.
So they finish a basement, let's say.
And that's an excellent experience.
Right.
Now you're getting
So we're
into
getting
a
right
whole
in.
different
Yeah.
category.
Right.
So forget the gazebo then, you're right.
Right.
Let's talk about the finished basement.
Right.
I would say that a good 5 out of every 10 finished basements that I come across from a seller have not been legalized.
Right.
Now, if you're buying the house and you say to me, Mike, I understand that it's not legal, but I want to buy it. That's your choice. And we can probably do that depending on the lender.
Right.
However, if you say to me, I need that to be legal, well, now we have the issue.
Right.
And if I'm switching sides and I represent the seller, then I have to tell them, okay, if you want to sell the house to this person, or let's be honest, if you want to sell the house in general, you're probably going to have to legalize that.
Right.
Most attorneys are not going to take their journey of legalizing that element of the house themselves. It's really outside the wheelhouse, and it's not what's expected when you retain them for the real estate transaction.
Right.
Me personally, I immediately go to my expediter to have that done.
Right.
And then they go through the process of dealing with the town directly, where they have the expertise, and have that job done for us.
Right. Right. So you're at the table and you see that there's a title comes back, right? Maybe let's talk a real life example.
Sure.
Right. So you order title, it comes back and they say, give me an example.
I'll give you a great example,
Yes.
and this is actually on a file we have right now.
Right.
Title report comes back, and there is a search in the title report that looks specifically for certificates of occupancy. Now, worse than having a structure there that doesn't have a permit at all, because that would be one that generally the people understand is there, but the town won't always understand it's there, and the town should always know what's on your property. But if the town doesn't understand that it's there, the parties can work amongst themselves. If, however, the seller at some point applied for a permit, built the structure, but didn't close the permit, right? Now we have the bigger problem, because you're in contract, you can't back out, and the seller is going to be obligated to close that permit. And that's when I'm going to call Ruth and say, I need my expediter to have this issue taken care of.
So then, so the call goes to Ruth. We have a property in Shirley, or Santa Mariches, or Brookhaven Township, let's say, right?
Brookhaven
Let's pick
Sure.
Brookhaven, because they're a little prickly, as they all are.
They all are.
But they have other constraints upon them with septic and whatnot. They come to you, and now you get the call. And now you're going to work with this seller who has to legalize this. So what's your experience then?
Well, first thing, I just go into research. Brookhaven has a department that's called the research department. You basically go and you research with a staff member on town saying, this is what we have. This is the last CO. These are the permits. This is anything that's open. They'll actually copy the actual permit. And if they have plans in a survey, they'll also provide that to me. That's accessible to all homeowners, to anybody that actually goes to the town.
Right.
So I've also been educating some of the realtors to, hey, before you list, just walk to the town, do your research, $43.59 it is to get a survey, and say, this is what we have. This is what's legal, this is what's not legal.
You say $43.59.
$43.59 for a survey.
So the cost?
Yeah, they do. Some towns.
They're charging you $43?
They charge you $43 for a survey, but you don't need to have a survey to have it there.
Right.
You can actually have a FOIL.
Right.
It's a freedom of information.
Right. So these are copies. These are not
copies.
new. These are not new
certified.
surveys. Right.
Just because you're there and you're getting it certified is why they charge you.
Gotcha.
But you can go online and file a FOIL in any town, in any municipality that they ask you for. It's a matter of how much and how quickly you need it.
Right. Right.
So
you're paying the $43 to get it
I
there.
pay it just because I want it there.
Makes sense.
I want to know exactly. He calls me on Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm in the town saying, what do you have on this? What do we got? Tell me what I need to do.
Right.
I want to legalize.
Right.
Obviously, everything you want to do is to legalize the property and legalize any structures or any interior alterations or anything that comes up on the title. We want to legalize.
They've converted a garage. Dad was a carpenter, and in the 80s he put this family room on, and people just did whatever they wanted in the 70s and 80s. But now, 20, 40 years later, now
you have a garage conversion that's now converted into living space.
Correct.
Which can involve taxes, tax assessors, plans, survey.
Correct.
Septic. Across the board, Mike would tell you that right now most closings do not or do require a survey. I don't know, but I recommend that everybody get a survey. Because if you do have to file something, you have a survey right there. These municipalities are not municipalities, meaning towns and villages. They're going to require you to have an updated survey.
Right. And what about the guy? I mean, you tell me. But I have homeowners hand us surveys from 1964, and it's grained out, and it's foiled from the town. The town gave this to me. Can I use this?
As long as there's no other structures or illegal.
Right.
Okay, so that's going to be two separate opinions.
Yes.
Right.
So I actually have in my retainer that if there's not a survey on file within the last 3 years, I recommend that you get it.
Right.
It's going to cost you between $750 and $850, depending on the size of the property.
Yep.
You could have much bigger.
Right. Standard stamped tract-built homes on Long Island.
Correct.
You get a 4-acre lot in a different store. Right.
Absolutely. Right. But that survey is going to show not just if there's any new structures on the property from the time that this new seller bought it to now.
Right.
It's also going to tell you, which we can get into at a later time, about the dimensions of the fences on the property and boundary line issues. So I won't jump into that.
Yeah.
But the biggest argument against getting the survey is what?
Costs.
Cost. And for $750, you avoid thousands of dollars worth of headache.
Yeah.
Thousands of
Thousands.
dollars. Absolutely.
Right. And these are just basic, they're assets to the property. A survey, right? Existing conditions of the property, the survey of the, in our space as architects, right? When you take possession of a property, you have a survey that's legal. And in Oyster Bay, it needs to be within 6 months anyway. For any work that you do, you have to have a 6-month shelf life. I think in Brookhaven, it's a year.
1 year.
Yeah, it's a year.
Within a year.
So, and most of the municipalities are moving that direction because they're looking for illegal structures. So you have a survey of the property, and then, as you start moving into these, modifications or legalizations, then, our firm would go in and measure existing conditions. And now you have an existing set of documents on your home, and it's an asset that goes
With you.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
because the town is looking at the life history of the building. They're not looking at you, Mr. Homeowner.
That's right.
Because I'm the second owner in my property. It was built in '64. Woman aged out, moved on. We picked it up in 2010. So she lived there from '64 to 2009 when we bought from her. Now I'm owner number 2. The town is concerned with the life history of the building, not Mr. Gucciardo and not Mrs. Smith,
Right.
because there'll be an owner after me and an owner after them. But they're looking at the life history of the building.
I would say getting the survey is infinitely more important than getting the home inspection. And people are going to argue that point. But you can walk through a house for the most part and can tell if there are physical defects in it. You might not know everything about the plumbing, you might not know everything about the roof, although you can visually see that. I guarantee you cannot visually pick up what is and is not legal and where your boundary lines are without a survey. But again, there are other parties too that are coming against it because not all banks need the survey.
Right.
And surveys show issues.
Right.
Now, it's all three of us are working to put away those issues, whereas a lot of lenders just wanted to be able
just
to
move it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
That's great until a year later when the neighbor says, "Hey, you're on my property," or "Hey, I own your property."
Yeah.
And
10
It
years,
happens
right.
a lot.
Absolutely.
And these aren't the bell curve of buyers. This is the major investment in life.
Yes.
This is it.
Yes.
So you're buying a $500,000 home on Long Island, and as crazy as it sounds, that's probably bell curve number.
That's right.
Right? So you're going to spend $500,000 and to nickel and dime the peripheral things that is putting you, right? Because it's risk management.
Absolutely.
Is really what it is, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming, I'm making the assumption, and you correct me, your job is to mitigate and to ensure that who you're representing is protected. That's your job.
Absolutely, which is literally why I have them sign off if they say they're not going to get the survey so that future issues don't come back on us.
Right.
And then we're forced to say,
Right.
but I asked you to get it.
Yeah.
And then you're
Right.
stuck, you're really stuck in
And
that
you're stuck.
position.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
So that's the homeowner tip on why these things are necessary.
Absolutely.
But back to the closing table.
Yes.
You see deficit on title, you then are off to the town,
Right.
And you're doing the research, and then?
And then I need you.
Right,
Basically, at that point, depending on what we're looking at,
right.
garage conversion. Let's take the basement example that you have, okay? No bathroom in the basement, but now it's considered living space.
Right.
So now, not only are towns asking for a floor plan of just the basement, they're now asking for the entire home,
Entire home.
to have a plan so they
Right.
can have their files
Why are
updated.
they doing that?
I don't know really have the correct answer to that. Every town is different.
Yep.
But the majority of the reasons that I'm getting from inspectors is that they need it because they never had it on file before.
That's right.
So now they want to have it on file in the future that maybe they do want to convert that garage.
Correct.
They already have a plan on file and makes it easier for the future homeowner or the future person who's going
Right.
to put a permit into place.
And I would say to anybody watching, especially if the properties are in non-sewer districts, they're on septic, in Suffolk County specifically,
Or NASA, right?
but specifically in Suffolk County, I would recommend that you go back and watch past episodes with Delandro Engineering, who specializes in septic the new septic laws in Suffolk County, because that is a major booby trap. I mean, we're talking numbers, all in between $35,000 and $50,000 to upgrade septic systems. These are not, I just
not
happen
small.
to find.
That's right.
No one finds the bell curve. They're not finding 50 grand someplace they didn't know about. Right. So they're asking for this in part because they're looking at bedroom counts. They don't care how many bathrooms you have. They're looking at bedroom counts. And they're on a fishing expedition. Is what I think.
I would agree 100% with what you're saying, because if you went ahead and converted the basement without permission, what else might you have done without permission in the house?
Correct.
And they should be looking at that, because the cost is eventually going to go up for taxes on the property, which then comes to you, to me, for somebody else that's not doing it the proper way. I'm not trying to be Captain America with it.
No,
But
absolutely.
truthfully, if the guy next to you is causing that much more of a strain, that eventually comes to our pockets.
Correct. And but then if you just take it down from and nobody wants, this very rarely happens, but it does. God forbid your kids are sleeping in a bedroom downstairs and there is some event that threatens life, health, and safety, and you can't get in or out.
Oh, yeah.
Or if there is some kind of loss, flood or otherwise, and you don't have a CO on that basement, they're not going to cover that on your homeowners.
That's right.
Right?
That's absolutely right.
It all comes down to safety.
It comes down to safety, and it's risk management from a insurance standpoint. So it makes sense. Nobody wants to do this. This is not money I want to spend.
Right.
It stinks. I get it. I bought the house like this. What are you talking about that it doesn't have a da-da-da?
That's one of the most popular answers you get.
Oh.
It was like this.
It was like this when I bought it.
When I bought it. Right.
That's right.
So now when we work together, Ruth, and we see it, we're going to stay on the basement. We'll go out, measure the spot, right, and we'll deliver rough schematics, and then we'll get on the phone and say, all right, Ruth, they got 2 bedrooms down here. What do we want to do? Like this is going to flag septic and so now we're going to game plan.
Right, we have to game plan. Whether the homeowner at that point want to keep the 2 bedrooms, then we will have to legalize those 2 bedrooms.
Right, or we can give them an option and say, why don't we take the door off and reframe it so it's a 5-foot opening, and so it's light,
an office.
It's an
without
office
a closet.
Correct, and we could start to play that game. So that we don't force a family to put an egress window in for $5,000.
Well, I don't know if I know any municipality right now that doesn't require 2 points of exit
you would need 2 points
in the basement.
But if what I'm suggesting is let's make the assumption it's a walkout basement. They got walkout
if they
basement,
have the 2,
and they have 2 bedrooms, but they have standard basement windows. In order to legalize those, if they're living overnight, then you have to have egress windows. But if we open up the door to 5 foot, then light and ventilation is a continuation from one room to another, and you wouldn't have to legalize
and remove the bed, make it an office.
Correct. So now let's say we close it like that. Now the new owners, if they want to close this up, then they would file a permit, and they would put the egress windows in, and it's all legal and it's all clean. And it's up to the next owner to make the improvement if they chose it.
But they will have your plans already, because at this point we are legalizing that basement for recreation room or living space.
Correct. So then what we do for our clients is we give our clients a certificate that says, put this with your closing documents, so that when you turn over, right, the new owner wants to move forward. We've just measured this house. Here's a certificate. Come back to us because we have your job already on file. And now when you want to make improvements, all that work's already done. It's done. It's sitting.
It's done.
Right.
Less cost for the new owner.
Correct. So it's a asset that moves, like the survey, moves with the actual product.
Right.
So you're navigating the towns, and talk about navigating the towns. What is that like?
It's not easy. It's doable.
Right.
But it really is a great communication between the attorneys, the architects, the homeowners, what they want, and what we need to legalize, with fair communication with all the towns and villages. I don't think I can go into a town or village that have not been cooperative with letting us know.
Right.
Now, within the town and the villages, whether their departments, their different departments, the violation department and the building department, whether they speak together and with each other, that's up to them.
Right.
But it's still up to me
Right.
to call the violation department, and it's still up to me to call
Right.
the building. Biggest town here in Suffolk County, they don't talk.
Right.
They don't talk. So I know I need to pick up the phone and speak to somebody in violation.
Right.
Send an email and say, please speak to somebody in the building department, and have the building department then speak to somebody in the violation department, and then put them on a three-way call and get this taken
Right.
care of.
Right.
Those are when we come up with violations, simple violations that people don't even know about until they get to the closing table.
That's right.
Right.
You know, I think 80% of my job is fulfilling those violations that can incorporate legal. I think the last one we had with a huge legal, whether it was a condemned building and it wasn't
That's right.
the whole house was considered condemned because there were squatters in there.
Right.
So the legal got involved, but it was kept in the legal department with the violations and not even in the buildings department.
That's right.
So I had to clear that violation
Right.
first and then move into the building
So
department.
while all this is happening, let's go back to your world.
Sure.
The time is ticking. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, time is definitely ticking.
Time is not your friend.
No, and that's why this kind of thing really needs to happen from the onset. And the example that Ruth just gave that we worked on together was a foreclosure. Not everybody is buying a straight purchase, but if you're going to a foreclosure auction, you're buying the property as it is. And then when you get to it and find out that these issues exist, the buyer, not the seller, but the buyer has to take care of those issues. So it's that much more important to have your team in place.
Right.
Your team in place, so that the people that you're dealing with understand the time parameters. They understand how fast this needs to get done,
Right.
and you're already working in
Right.
sync with each other.
Right.
A regular buyer finds out that there's some kind of an issue with a violation, possibly a condemnation. The time issue you can then put back onto the seller side,
Right.
saying, yes, I have to close by this date. But you've created a hurdle now that you have to jump before I can actually get that done. So I'm safe now. Of course, you bring into questions, especially now, interest rates, okay, that could have been 5 when you started and now we're at 6 when you're closing, which can play a major deal in it.
Right.
But not every buyer has the luxury of putting it onto the seller.
Right.
So again, that brings into play the importance of what you're doing and the importance of what the expediter's doing, because time is the luxury we don't have, but we still have to get it done.
Right.
Because if you don't, you are still going to have the issue of being in default.
Right. Right. So back to navigating the town in light of time. How long are these towns taken to?
Every town is different. The majority is 6 to 8 weeks. Permits are taking 4 to 6 weeks. Inspections, where you used to be able to get an inspection scheduled within 1, 2, 3 days, inspectors are now taking 2 to 3 weeks to
Right.
get out there.
Right.
And it's literally pick up the phone. Has anybody canceled an
Right.
inspection? Can I get squeezed in?
Right.
Half my job is calling to see if I can get my inspection squeezed
Right.
into another.
Right.
Because
Right.
somebody canceled.
So as I'm listening to you, you know, you said, could the realtor, could the homeowner have access to the town?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, when I
But
do-
there's a big but.
There's a big but,
There's a
yeah.
really big but. Nothing just happens.
No.
Right. In our world, like we want in our office, we're going to have black T-shirts with white writing that says "just" is a 4-letter word. Nothing just happens.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So I've heard you now, Ruth, talk about picking up the phone and coordinating departments and nudging the inspector to get them out. There's a constant touch.
Constant.
It's a constant touch. It's a full-time job.
It is. It's a full-time job.
I equate what Ruth does, and that's the only expediter I use, to the scene in Goodfellas when they're getting into the Copacabana. Everybody's online outside. And
Right.
Ray
And they go into the
Liotta pulls
kitchen.
up in
Yeah.
his car and
Right.
he leaves it, and I got this guy. And then I know the guy at the door, and I'm walking through
Right.
the kitchen, and they bring a new table out. That's the expediter.
Correct.
So people who say, oh, I don't think I want to spend that, you're online.
You're
at
online,
the
you're out here.
Copacabana,
Right.
and you're not getting
You may
in
not
that
get in the
night.
table. That's
I'll
right.
go with Ruth, and I'll go through the
Thank
kitchen
you.
and up,
Right.
and I'll have my table done
Right.
for me, because that's how business gets done.
Correct. And now the seller is about to sell a property that maybe they own outright, and they're about to get $500,000 at closing. That's a lot of clams.
Yes, it is.
And your fees aren't $50,000.
No.
No. This is negligible dollars in comparison to not even fractional costs.
1 month mortgage
Correct.
payment.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So nobody wants to spend that, but if you want the 500 large, you have to tie all this stuff off.
And of course, most sellers are moving. And if your house is out of state, they don't care about what you're doing in New York.
Right.
So
Correct.
yeah, time is of the essence.
Time's of the
It all
essence.
goes back to the listing.
Right.
That's my
Okay, so
philosophy.
so let's
it all
go there.
Goes back
Exactly.
To the listing. I started my career in real estate as a listing agent. The only reason why I got into expediting was I was dealing with a lot of the investors that were buying these homes at foreclosures, and they were saying, "Here you go, Ruth, listing. It's a great privilege. Here I am, first year real estate, saying, all right, great, I have all these listings." But then I'm getting to the closing tables, and they're saying, "Oh, there's a finished basement and it's not on the CO." And I'm like, uh-oh, and the investors are like, "Take care of it." So I self-taught myself how to do this.
Right. So
and
you were a proactive
I was
agent.
proactive. After the 4th or 5th listing that this was happening to me, I said, and I'm only 3-4 months in.
Yeah. So you had 5 listings in 4 months?
My first year, I think
So
I
you're like a
worked with 2
superstar.
investors. I worked with 2 investors. The minute I got my listing, I think I had something between 6 or 7 listings.
Right.
Off the bat.
Right.
I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
But I just now know that when I list a home, or when they gave me the home to saying, "Ruth, go ahead and start advertising this home, start listing the home," the first thing I did was, let's hold off for a second. Let me go to the town.
Right.
Let me find out what's up. Make
Right.
sure everything is legal. Make sure that the deck in the back is legal.
Right.
Make sure that the gazebo in the back is legal.
Right.
Hey, throw in the pool.
Right.
You know?
Right.
How many pools are you
Yeah,
able?
right.
You know?
100%. So now an agent has the privilege of selling this property.
Exactly. They should do their job.
So they have the privilege of doing, and now we're saying that the town takes time, the research takes time, all the discovery takes time, and then you have to transact with the town, and that takes time, and your clock is ticking the minute they sign.
That's
Correct?
absolutely right.
Why wait until
So
they
why
sign?
wait until you're signing when you should go and say, these things are going to be an issue, let's jump on it. So you start doing your process, you start doing the legwork. Maybe the agent calls someone like yourself. You say, hey, there's an illegal this or an illegal that. Then it comes to us. Now we mobilize fast, right?
Right. You guys are
we're
super fast.
Yeah, we're super fast,
I love
right?
it.
So all of our onboarding is all automated. It's like ordering title, right? So you go online and you punch it in. You say, oh, what does Frank have available? Oh, he's available on tomorrow at 2. I'll take it, right? 20 business days, I have plans in your hands. So it makes your job easy, it makes your job easy, but the point is, all of it still does take time,
Yeah.
and then you have to get to the town.
Right.
So they should start like day one.
Day one. The minute a realtor walks into that listing appointment and they know they have that listing, even if you don't have that listing, every listing appointment that I go into, I do my research before. I go back to public records. If I have time to go to the town before my listing appointment, great. But at least I know that when I walk in there, I do a rough sketch, always, of all the rooms that they have, first floor, second floor, and I compare it to what they have in the town. And then before I even list it, a lot of the times the homeowner's like, list it tomorrow. Hold off. I want to list it tomorrow. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the days you want to list it, you know?
Right.
But you know what? It's Monday. Let me get my butt into the town
Right.
and see what they have.
Right.
You have a dormer here. When did you do that dormer? Oh, my dad did that dormer 20 years
boy.
ago.
Yeah.
That's the most famous
Because if
thing.
you see that, now you're sweating because you're like, oh my God, are we going to get this done? Right? And you have a bayonet at your back,
Absolutely.
right? Because time's ticking.
Absolutely. So it does help when, before the contract even gets to me, that the parties understand that there's an issue that has to be addressed. But there's a flip side to it also when you're talking about the buyer. When you have some issues on the property, like a violation, that's the kind of thing that if we know we can't get it done within the parameters of the contract, some attorneys are willing to hold money in escrow, but most attorneys do not want to do that. It just creates more work after the contract. Parties want it done immediately, and everybody forgets that there are other entities like the town involved that have to help us.
Yeah.
So I will advise the buyer that if there's a structure, not an open permit, but if there's a structure that's not legal, again, let's go to the finished basement. Finished basement's there, but there's no open permit, it's just there. To advise them what it would cost for them to legalize it after closing, and are they still getting a benefit on the purchase price they have, which most likely they are. And at that point, having that same team is just as important.
Right.
Because now that they own it, now they can move forward themselves, have it expedited, get it completed, in
Right.
case they ever want to build something else on the house.
Right.
Because as you know, if they do want to put in an in-ground pool,
That coming up.
the town's going to see that finished
Right.
basement, and they're going to make you
That's
do
an excellent point
Yeah.
that we didn't even touch base on. If you're getting any structures done in your house and you're trying to legalize something, and you do have that basement that's finished, and you bought the house with the okay that it doesn't have a permit, and then suddenly you want to install a pool. Well, you need electrical, they need to get into the house.
Correct.
At the same time, the inspector is going to make sure that you have that house, where then your team comes in and says, we need house plans now
Correct.
for something as simple as just having a pool.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So it really is so important to make sure that, like you said, teamwork. I've worked with you for the past 2 or 3. I met him because the first one was a pool.
That's right.
And they had a finished basement, and we were running into that situation.
Right.
So, yes, just having plans, having surveys, having the right attorney,
And having it clean.
and having it clean, no
Absolutely.
violations.
This is a investment, just the same way that you would
Absolutely.
put termite traps
Yep.
to maintain the integrity of the
Absolutely.
home, and mice traps, whatnot, and you're doing your ongoing maintenance. This is just part of the cost of house ownership properly, because dollars today not spent equates to hundreds of dollars later.
Absolutely.
It just does. And no, it just, we not laugh, but we chuckle all the time. There's never enough money to do it right the first time, but there's always enough money to fix it later.
Right.
And that's a disaster. And it's always a multiplier. It's a
Absolutely.
disaster.
It is, the multiplier in permit fees. All these towns, when it's a compliance permit, meaning that it's an already established permit, you're trying to legalize that finished basement that was done illegally, and now you're trying to legalize it. The town's going to say, that's all great, but now you're paying double, or some villages
sometimes
3 times,
And I've
or 5
heard 5
times
times.
the amount that it would have cost
Would've
you
cost
if you
you.
would have just done it the first
So if it was
time.
an $800 permit,
It's now,
it could be a $3,200
Right.
permit, or $2,400.
it's automatically doubled.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are on Long Island, the municipality that you're working with, it could go 3, 4, 5 times the amount.
Yeah.
And now take another step. If you're a seller who got the price they wanted, and now the buyer and the buyer's attorney picks up that there is a unfinished basement, the purchaser is going to say, in order for me to buy this now, I need a $15,000 deduction from the price. And if that seller needs to buy another house, they're absolutely going to do it. Absolutely.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. I think it's what, an ounce of prevention is
Yeah,
worth a pound of
of
cure.
cure.
But
Frankly.
absolutely. But I can't stress enough that you don't go out and piecemeal this. You
Correct.
use the team
Do
that
it.
is in.
Just go do it.
Correct.
Get it done. And get it done.
Correct.
Get it done properly with efficiency, and you're looking long term. Because, and I can tell you this, back to your point about, the concessions. Pre-COVID, a 2x4 was like $2.57.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
By the end of COVID, they were like $12
One.
For
for
one.
one.
Yeah.
Now
We-
what are they? Like
Yeah.
8 something?
Yeah,
No,
well, they've
no.
come down a little bit, but the cost of materials, you were saying earlier about escrow. We're architects. I'm 6 months behind accurate Main Street pricing because I'll do the work and then it goes to bid, and by the time the contracts are signed for the construction, and during COVID, those prices were just wacky. I couldn't even help my clients because I'm not calling the lumber yards to get what's the cost of a 2x4 today.
Right.
So materials, so the days of a $5,000 escrow may only be covering the town fees. Forget the architecturals, forget the actual construction costs to fix this. And God forbid this isn't a Suffolk County non-sewer district, and this is going to push you to new septic systems.
And I will promise you that the retainer that you gave to your attorney for the transaction is not the cost of fixing that after the closing. Absolutely is not. And it
Correct.
shouldn't be, because
Right.
now there's this issue. So
Right.
fixing it beforehand.
Right. So I think that's the take home. So the take home message to what my colleagues here have to say today, right? Many, many years of experience, hundreds, thousands of properties over course of careers. When you see a problem, fix the problem. Get on it right away. All of this takes time. It takes time during discovery. It takes time during correction. It takes time with the town and the bureaucracy. Get a jump on it before it starts making its way to contract with you.
Absolutely.
Is that? Would you agree? Is that the take home for
Absolutely.
today?
That is the
The take-home.
best possible circumstance for going into it. Absolutely. And again, I'm just going to say, stay with your team.
Yes.
Use the team that's already assembled. There's a reason The Avengers was such a good movie. But it's the truth. I mean, if I need to call you, you're there on the weekend. If I need to call you, you're there at 9 o'clock at night. That connection's there. Everything is always moving forward. If you are constantly waiting for people, then it's drudgery.
That's right. And and again, in our space here, legalizing a basement for an architect is like for a healthy staffed shop is like a bottle cap or a piece of lint. Like, they don't want to do this. We're like a unicorn, right? We want all the bottle caps and lints, but you're drudgery working with part-timers or semi-retired guys or guys that are you just don't have the full attention because the fees aren't competitive, right? They want the big sexy jobs,
Right.
So we've made we know your plight, we know what you're up against, so we've crafted our model so that if you need to onboard on a Saturday, type it in, onboard, let the guys be out there by Tuesday, whatever it is, right? So we know that time's of the essence. What else do we want to talk about? We got any other hot topics?
Really, the last thing would be the help with violations.
Violations.
When those come up, 'cause
That
that's
and
really
also the
one.
new tool that you have. What is it called? The camera.
Oh, when we go out and scan. So
When you guys go out to scan.
we don't put out men with Stanley tape measures and graph paper. We'll put a scanning tool in, and we're capturing
Which is-
360 dimensionals, and then buried underneath that is all of our measurement tools, and that goes into our software program, and all of it's very robust, and technology drives what we do, which is why we can keep our pricing low, and we can keep turnaround times fast, and you get
Which is a great thing for
yeah.
new projects, more for new projects,
Well,
but
for-
for
yeah.
violations that,
Yeah, well,
Well,
for
it's great for everything,
Yeah,
but-
for violations, not every violation needs us.
Right.
Some of it's just paperwork.
right.
Some of it's just paperwork.
A lot of it's just calling the town and finding out why
Right.
there's a high grass violation from
Right. Well,
1986.
Right.
Sure.
And just kind of clean that thing up. But when it comes to measuring the whole house, yeah, we'll deploy. We've said when we were modeling this, we said, why can't they have a good price, good quality, and fast time? Why is everyone forced to pick two? We say you can have all three in our practice. So
And don't downplay that as how it revolutionizes what we're doing, because the people getting your product are seeing a higher level, and let's be honest, okay, it's younger people working
Yeah.
at the town, it's younger people
Yeah.
they don't want to see the older product. When COVID hit, contracts went from always signature in person to e-signing.
E-signing
Yeah.
everything.
And it has changed the real estate market more than I would say anything else within the last decade. So what your company is now bringing to the table is the step above what the product was 10 years ago.
Right.
But it more importantly is what the younger generation that's doing the work now wants to see and work with. And the
Right.
importance of always moving forward with that, I
Right.
can't stress enough.
yeah. And again, I'm not knocking any other of my colleagues. I'm just saying we know time's of the essence.
Yeah.
And part-time folks,
Right.
it's okay if it's hobby. It's okay. You get a good price. My brother-in-law works at a big firm and he's doing this and this. That's okay.
Oh.
But not when you're trying to sell a $500,000.
No, and you just brought up the bane of real. Just because your brother-in-law works in the market, the idea of using family rather than somebody that's an expert at the top of it can be the absolute kiss
and
of
the
death.
family might be an expert, and God bless them, and it's
If they
fine.
are, yeah.
But you're selling a $500,000 piece of property. It needs to just minimize the variables. And that's really, I guess, again, back to the take home. That's what we're talking about here today. Minimize the variables before it gets to your desk.
100%. Ruth can call me and yell at me if I didn't get her something on time.
Right.
She's not going to call and yell at my brother if I had to put him into the transaction.
Right.
And that is the point.
Right,
If the
the whole
client's
point is
brother
that, right.
happens to do surveys and I didn't get my survey when I was supposed to, if I call him and yell, he's going to go running back to his brother and
Yeah.
say, not necessarily yell, but yell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
he's
who
going to
is
go
this guy?
run.
It's
Yeah.
just
Stick with your
Your team.
professional
Keep
team.
it clean.
There you go.
Keep it
Team.
clean.
There
you
Okay,
go.
so that's
it's
another
all
good
about
take
the
home.
team
Keep it
and who
clean.
you from. It starts from the realtor to the bank, to the attorney, to the architect,
That's right.
to the expediter.
Right.
It's just the team in general.
Sure.
It just works.
Right.
If it doesn't work and there's somebody that is an outsider, the brother-in-law, and it's okay because eventually, how many times have we had that where now the brother-in-law is one of our contractors
Right.
or the brother-in-law
Right.
is now working
Right.
with us, but keeping it within the team where it's a concierge service basically is what I
Right.
call it.
That's absolutely
I
right.
call it a
Right.
concierge service. There's nothing better than having the realtor, the bank, the attorney, the expediter, the architect, the surveyor, all of us all working
Moving together.
moving together, knowing the importance that it is to get this house closed. Because eventually, the end point is giving somebody the dream of moving into a beautiful house that they don't have to worry
raise
about.
your kids and
That is the end point.
I
It's
remember-
not us. It's
You're-
not getting
you're
a
correct.
permit.
You're correct.
It's about closing on their dream home. They're
Yep.
making a $500,000 investment. It's the biggest investment of their lives.
Like
And I
you said.
say that to all my clients. This is the biggest investment in your life. Why are you going to shemp on this when you can just not have to worry about it? And like you said, it's a mortgage payment. So you're doing a mortgage payment
Right.
a couple of months before you have to actually make that mortgage payment. But you know what? In the long run, it's going to pay off.
correct.
right.
Correct. So, well, listen, I think we covered a lot of good ground today.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate, listen, you're a busy professional. You're a busy professional. You took time out of your day. So I just want to say thank you that we could add value to our clients that are watching. And I hope, the viewers out there, maybe you glean something from this. If you have any questions, please call Mike. Please call Ruth, myself. We'll make all of our information available to you. If you have any questions, call the office directly. We're happy to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll meet here in the coffee shop and we'll talk shop again the next time. So,
Looking forward.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
for having us.